live in the present, but always have the future in mind. And think about next year. I mean, even tomorrow, think about the day after. Just make sure you make every move, let's say carefully, and make sure you don't regret it.
Welcome to another episode of Bigger Than the Hustle podcast, and I've got another international guest from Europe. Now, Arian he's a young hot start the way I see. He's a young kid that's just been doing so much in the world. He intrigued me, so I reached out for him and he thankfully said yes to appear on the podcast. So I'm going to introduce him and let him introduce himself. So hi, Arian.
Hello, how are you?
And how are you keeping today?
I'm good. I'm doing good, like always. How are you?
Perfect. Thanks so much. So I'm going to hand over the mic to you. If you could introduce yourself and how you want to introduce yourself, and then we can go into the conversation from there.
All right, sure. I'm Arian. Thanks for the invite on the podcast. I'm happy to be here. In short, I'm interested in entrepreneurship and let's say solving problems. So this March, I published my first book, which covers the essentials of modern finance. It's called The Quantified Fortune. You can get that on my website or Amazon. You can read about it. And I've also started 3 startups so far, which I'm working on and managing. I mean, they're in different industries. I'd like to get into it more once we start with the conversation. But yeah, in short, I mean, I love entrepreneurship. I love solving problems. And yeah.
And that's perfect. Now, something you've just said there, which is you love solving problems. Now, as a 17-year-old, so Arian forgot to introduce himself and his age. So 17 years old is how he is. So this is something that intrigued me even more. Now, I remember at 17, I was at college. Not really solving, but I was solving problems like how to get up in the morning on time and get to my class, not writing books, starting businesses, etc. So where has that energy come from for you as entrepreneurship and moving down the steps of creating things to solve problems?
Right. So just before I start on that, the reason I didn't say my age generally, like when I go in a meeting, on a podcast, on an interview, whatever, my age, I only mention it if it's brought up by, let's say, someone else other than me. I tend to not move forward with my age because sometimes it gives off the wrong impression. I mean, especially before, let's say last year, it was difficult to get someone to take you seriously. I mean, I went on the meeting, everyone was excited. I'm like, how are you? And it was all going well. And they're like, how old are you? I'm like 16. And then it just went sideways from there. I just couldn't continue it. No one took me seriously. And they thought it was like a school project. So, that's the thing. I mean, I've always said it, right? So there's no right or wrong, in my opinion. I mean, whatever you're doing with your life, I mean, however you're spending your time, you only live once, right? I mean, for what we know anyway. So I think you should be spending it on what you love doing. And in my experience, once you, let's say, get to a certain level in life, you can never go below it, right? So there was a period in my life when I was 13 at the time, and I had a bunch of friends that did programming, and I had no idea. I mean, I hated computers at that time when we had computer lessons in school. And, at the time we were doing like Microsoft Paint or some beginner stuff, and I hated it. And then all my friends used to program these advanced artificial intelligence, self-driving cars and whatever. And so they sort of forced me into learning how to do it as well, so I could join their team and compete in a competition. So that was when, and they had like prior experience, 2 years, and they've gone to like competitions abroad, Australia, Canada, Japan, crazy stuff. And I had to catch up in 9 months. So I sort of started learning. I had this great teacher that I'm very grateful for. So we started learning, and time went by fast. I had to put a lot of work in. And we went to the competition anyway. It's a long story, but the competition didn't really go as planned. But after that, I sort of had nothing to do, and now the competition was over. And that's when I realized I really enjoyed, working myself, do as much as I can. I really enjoyed it. And right now, I can't wait to get home, like, let's say, watch a movie or something. But if I spend the whole day watching a movie, I won't feel good. So it's sort of there I discovered that I enjoy doing more than I did yesterday. I mean, I tend to look at time as, let's say, a commodity. So let's say tomorrow, if I wake up and I'm the same person as I was yesterday, then the only thing I've lost here is time. I mean, I've gained nothing. I've just lost time. So that's sort of what motivates me through everything. But yeah.
Now, do you have people around you that have created things and set their own business up? Do you have parents that are in that space, or is it something that you've just generated yourself, as in from an interest from outside of yourself?
Right. I wouldn't say so. I mean, thing is, my father and my mom, they own business. There's sort of a principle behind entrepreneurship, right? It's the fact of like identifying a problem and trying to come up with a solution, taking the risk of solving the problem and creating a solution for everyone to use it. Now, I personally tend to differentiate that from a classic businessman. So no, I wouldn't say so. I mean, my parents had some. My dad was always working for himself. He never was employed anywhere, from what I understand. But entrepreneurship wise, no. Maybe my father a bit, but other than that, no.
That's interesting. So seeing it within your parents, obviously, it's a different model to what you've created, because we're in a different world now, right? So we're on an online world a lot more, whereas they were a lot more analog. So even when I set my business,
Exactly.
in a shop, you had to be in a shop or on the phone. There was no Google as such, there's no Facebook, etc. And you seem to have adapted to the new world, the new technology world, which you're growing up in. You only know this, right? Now, if we look forward from here, Arian, there's so many opportunities that are available, right? And I know, being an entrepreneur myself for the last 20 years, so many opportunities, and you want to go for all of them at some point. You don't want to let anything go, right? How do you decide on what interests you to pursue and what is more of a, I'll let that go, I'll leave that for someone else?
Right. That's a very good question, actually. That's actually one of the main problems I have when I'm, choosing what to do next. And the reason is because there's so many things in the world that attract me and catch my attention that I really want to do. And then there's only so much you can do at the same time, right? And even now, one of my biggest mistakes, I'd say, like if I had to give advice to, let's say, my 15-year-old self or 13-year-old self, the only thing that I would say is just do one thing at a time, 2 things max. Don't start too many things at the same time. I mean, when I was publishing my book, it was hell, because I had this thing on my mind where I had to publish it before I turned 17, which I finally did. But so it was very stressful, and I did too many things at a time, and I had to even sacrifice one of my projects. It was a blog that I had, technology blog. So yeah, I mean, that's a problem. I see too many opportunities and I just take them all, and I end up losing more than I would have if I just chose one and focused on that. But I'm trying to correct myself on that. And I try to sort of go with, I try to forget about the results of doing it every day and whether I would be passionate about that or not. You don't always get to do what you want. I mean, you can't always do every silly thing you want and do what you love and do what you're passionate about. It's not going to happen. And especially as you get older, the choices are going to be more difficult, and you're going to have to sacrifice more. The opportunity cost is going to be much higher. But at my age currently, I have let's say, benefit of getting to choose what really inspires me and what I love. I try to filter them out like that. And one thing I'm passionate about is food. I love food. You have no idea. And so one of my book and one of my first company, it's in finance and trading, stock market, cryptocurrency and etc. And then I have 2 other startups that are food related. And people tell me you're jumping from different branches. Truth is, I'm sort of sticking to technology. I mean, both of them are a mix of finance and technology, or cooking and technology. So I sort of stick to technology. The point is, I branch out into different things. And I'm sort of focusing on the food ones more at the moment, because that's what I'm really passionate about.
Do you know what's really fun about what you're saying is you don't realize what once you get responsibilities, what I mean by responsibility is when you have a mortgage, when you have kids, when you have, real people that are on your shoulders, that every decision is important. Before that, so when I started my first business, I moved back home with my parents. I was 24 years old. And you can make decisions because you want to, because you enjoy it, or maybe that it's just something that you'd like to try. But as soon as that changes where there's other people financially dependent on you, you start becoming a bit more structured in the way you make decisions. You can still have fun,
Exactly.
but it's slightly more pressure in making sure it's going to work. So all I would say at this stage, Aaron, just enjoy. Just keep enjoying what you do, right? Because that can change at any moment. And when that changes, the way you operate as an entrepreneur changes as well. I can see at this age, when you start down this path, this is a path you're going to stay on for a long time, because you have an idea, you want to roll with that idea, you pull people together and then you make it happen, or you do it by yourself, whatever way it is. And when you can do that, it's hard to then be part of an organization where then you have to ask for permission and you wait and things like that, right? And as an entrepreneur, you have an idea and you want to start rolling with it.
Of course. Yeah. Of course, I mean, it's the difference is very noticeable. I mean, having to work towards someone else's idea while you have all these ideas of your own. And, it's sort of, I like to think of it as, let's say, I always say this, it sometimes gives the wrong impression, but I like to think of it as like a sickness. Once you get it, like it's like you get infected with it. And once you step in this, you can't really withdraw, it's just impossible. It doesn't work, it's just your mindset adapts to solving the problems and going about your own business, and it's just difficult from there. So,
and I think where that can change is when you're really enjoying something you're doing and things are moving down a good path, as in you're solving problems, you're earning from it, and the bigger picture is working well, then you're in a great space. But at any moment, with the highs, you can get the lows. Yeah. So the lows being actually no decision is actually working. Everything's working against you. You're losing money. And that's when another side of you can come out as well. Because, right now you're on the highs. Enjoy the highs, but prepare for the lows. Because there will be times when it doesn't work, So as someone who's ahead of you in time, I would say enjoy the highs, but prepare for the lows. Always be conscious that everything you touch is not going to turn to gold. And that's not to dampen your mood. That's just to say that I was through that process between my 20s and 30s, a lot of highs, and 30s to 40s, a lot of lows. So being through both, I can almost sit with experience and say, really enjoy the highs, but what I didn't do during the highs was prepare for the times when things are going to be lean, things are going to get tough, especially financially, where things may get difficult. So just prepare yourself. But like you said, you're financial trading, so you may be okay in that. I wasn't. So what's your outlook on this cryptocurrency at the moment? What's your views on that?
Listen, okay, so I love the technology, right? I have a chapter in my book talking about it, and I love learning about it, the details. And, unfortunately, like many other fields in our time, very few people actually know how it works and, the fundamentals of it. Now, I love learning about it, and it's just fascinating how everything, even the history, who invented Bitcoin in the first place, we still don't know. And it's just a fascinating thing in general. However, there are things that they just don't work with me, in cryptocurrency. I prefer, let's say, stocks. And I mean, if I had to choose an investment that I would go for the rest of my life, it would definitely be stocks over cryptocurrencies. Now, that's because it's going to sound ironic, but I really enjoy the ability to touch something, something tangible, even though I work in technology. And that's one of my biggest problems with having tech startups. Everything you have is virtual. Everything you have is digital. And when I, let's say, read a book, watch a video, watch a movie, watch a series, where it's about the, let's say, 1920s when they had lots of land and they worked on horses and everything. It really excites me because I love something tangible, and cryptocurrencies, it's not tangible, and it's really all about demand and supply. At the end of the day, I mean, it's worthless without the demand, because the supply is limited, of course, but without the demand for the supply, then it's worthless, right? So and that's one of the things that doesn't really work with me. And another is that, let's say in the past year, it's been drifting towards an unserious, let's say, field of investment. You know, it's been a joke lately. One tweet and this happens. That has no idea what he is doing. He just puts some money in it, loses it all. Or then there's another 20-year-old, he gains 1 million. You know, it's just sort of a, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of what's happened lately, especially because
it's gambling in its core, isn't it?
No,
when you say, what I mean by that is, you know, the investor that's not an investor that just puts money in and sees what's going to happen. It's no different to putting money on a horse, is it? Or
exactly.
putting money in the market. You don't know. You know
exactly. It's not just cryptocurrency. Anything really, whether you're doing, let's say, stock market, forex trading, commodities, futures, contracts, whatever you're doing, even in a business. You know, even when you're starting a business, if you have no idea what you're doing, if you haven't calculated the risk, if you haven't thought about your next move, it's no different from gambling. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's cryptocurrency or not. If you're just, closing your eyes and hoping for the best, fingers crossed, that's gambling. That's the definition of gambling. But again, it's a new industry, and I think it'll settle in nicely. I do definitely believe it has a bright future ahead, because I think about this, right? You name a random cryptocurrency, let's say Bitcoin, for example. If it were to become, let's say, a daily medium of exchange, the value, there's only 21 million. We're 7 billion people on the planet. By that time, it's probably going to be 8 billion, 9 billion. And there's only so many coins that you can use. So the value would have to be so high that a small fraction is enough for our day-to-day use, right? So I do think with the demand rising and just us moving towards a more technologically advanced lifestyle, it has a bright future ahead. But I don't support the gambling style of investing in cryptocurrency.
It's all headlines and fast cars and Rolex watches and stuff, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, in terms of your investment strategy, if you see an investment, you think that's a good investment, what kind of fundamentals do you use to assess? I know you said something that's physical, so it's a company or whatever it is. What other things do you look at to say, actually, this is something I want to put my money towards?
Of course. Well, that sort of depends on the investment. I mean, sometimes, for example, I've been very invested in one startups, and at the time I launched it, actually, I promised myself not to start any more projects before I finished the rest. But it really made sense to me, right? It really, really made sense to me. And I had to go with it. I couldn't miss out on the thing. It really made sense to me. And in that scenario, I only care about whether it makes sense to me because, I trust my instincts a bit. So I'd like to follow up on it. But then again, it depends. If it's more, let's say something, it's different. I mean, there are different methods of analysis that you can use. Fundamental analysis, where you look at the more, let's say the company's profits, revenues, their statements, whether they're profitable, their liquidity. And then there's technical analysis, which use the chart and statistics and just patterns that have happened in the past, and you try to build a strategy upon that. So there are different methods of choosing. I mean, I tend to employ both fundamental and technical analysis. And I actually don't do a large portion of my investing. I don't do it myself. One of my companies, I've written an artificial intelligence that does the trading for you 24/7. Right. So I don't engage in the investing myself. So I put the robot on my account and it does it for me. And that robot mainly focuses on technical analysis. So, there is a range of methods that you can use. But to conclude it all, you can also look at it from a logical point of view. If and it's quite logical when you think about it, the market, when you start learning and understanding it, you discover that it's quite logical. I mean, you look at the movement of the price, you look at the headlines, you can automatically tell what has a good, let's say, future ahead, what doesn't, and you sort of adapt into it. I don't think it's wrong to stick to one method, one strategy. It's good to diversify your methods to be on the safe side.
So we've discussed financial investing, and we invest in money. I've always said the best investment is the investment in yourself. Exactly. How do you invest in yourself, and what kind of things do you do?
Listen, I personally think the best investment you can make in yourself is learning something that you didn't know yesterday. And by learning, I don't mean something academic, picking up a book. Talk to someone that's smarter than you, someone that's more successful than you. That's learning, all right? I don't limit myself to, let's say, academic learning. Learn a new formula, learn this. Learn that to succeed further on in life. But also, it's very important to gather experiences. That's, I think, one thing that really increases your value as a person. Different experiences and they can prepare you for the future very well. I think just going out there, experimenting different stuff every day, doing something new, it's very important because it truly changes your life. And I used to sort of stick to my comfort zone before. Now I'm trying out new things, and it's interesting. It's very good. I'm also very interested in working out. That's a different type of investing in yourself. I mean, keeping healthy, having a healthy diet. I love food, but again, I try to cut out sugar, no fast food, and I really enjoy that sort of lifestyle. I try to work out every day. So yeah, I mean, it's important. Exactly. I definitely agree with the fact that the most important investment you can make is yourself. Because, even if you're homeless, even if everything goes wrong, you're still going to have yourself. And it's important to be invested in yourself.
Such wise words there from a young man. Now,
thank you.
Arian,
thank you.
Something you just mentioned there about your looking after yourself. So the food you eat, the nutrition you put inside you, the way you move, because there's so many bodies of research about the way your mind and your body connect. Yeah. So when your body's in a good state, your mind's in a good state, and vice versa, and they help support each other. Correct?
Yeah.
So if there's any way forward where you can integrate that as a habit that you do not as a side, but you do as one of your main things, maybe when you first get up in the morning, maybe you do in the evening, in the afternoon, but there's times you set aside to focus on yourself. The food you're eating, the way you're moving, it will help you so much going forward. Because right now, your body is forgiving. And what I mean by that, you can literally sleep very little, you can eat what you want, you can drink what you want, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
10 years, you'll be fine.
But it's going to show in the long.
Yeah. As after 30, it starts becoming less forgiving. After 40, it's even less forgiving. So the more investment you can make now, because I see as those little micro steps, that if you're building good habits now, going down the line, it'll be normal. There'll be no different for you, right? So
yeah, exactly.
You can already say over 100 able, no problem, would be possible for you, right?
Now, yeah, definitely.
It seems like you get a lot of inspiration from different things you see, different things you hear, different things you listen to. So what inspires you to be the best version of yourself today?
That's an interesting question. It's got a long answer, different things, but I'd have to say, people that are close to you, and I'm not talking about like close friends, people you hang out with every day, people that are truly close to you. I mean, people that actually care about you, and they care about the benefits you receive, and even they're willing to put you in front of themselves, right? So I think it's important to be able to, let's say, make them proud in a way. right? That really motivates me. I mean, I do what I do for a lot of reasons. Firstly, because I truly enjoy it, but it's a great inspiration, a great motivation for me when I family. And you all get to enjoy it at the same time. You know, that's a big motivation for me. It's just it's beautiful. I mean, especially when working in a team has its perks, actually, and in my opinion, that's one of the main benefits: the fact that you get to enjoy it together, and it's really motivating, even through tough times. You have you can share the workload, you can share the rough patches. So I'd say, yeah, I mean, the reactions you get from different people, that's a relatively major motivation.
I think the analogy is when the tide rises, everyone rises together, right? So
Exactly.
you enjoy that ride. But when you like you said, when you've got people that you can bounce off, so you have your team, you have the people around you, it makes the workload lighter, well, doesn't it? Where you share your knowledge, you share your skills, and you share your decisions, because we can see what we can see, someone else can see what they can see, and when you share that together, it's so much wider. Your peripheral vision is so much wider.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think it's really important as well, especially at this age, to surround yourself with people that are ahead of you, if you can, because there's so much you will learn and so much pick up from people's experience just being in and being there, right?
Of course, yeah.
If there's, in terms of influential people that are around you today, who would you say is probably the most influential person that you have?
Around me, as in real life close friends, or like people that I'm associated with.
Yeah.
Influential in what way? To my life and to my decisions.
Which way do you think is influential for you right now to give you the life you have right now?
Oh, that's difficult. I'd say my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt, yeah, without a doubt, my parents, because that's the thing. One of the things I truly believe in, who you want to become, or let's just put it this way: who you will become in the future, has little to do with who you actually want to become, and has a lot to do with who you once were, right? How you're growing up, when you were little, and how your mindset sort of developed. And in my experience, it really depends on the people that are close to you and the people that are around you. You are who you hang out with, right? You are the people around you, because you learn a thing or two from them. And I've moved around a lot. I mean, I've moved cities, I've moved schools. So people around me are always changing, but two people that have always been close to me were my parents. So I'd say they're probably the biggest influence in the decisions that I make and the person that I become.
That's really important, because, like I said, they're the guidance for you, aren't they?
Exactly.
They're not going to tell you what to do, but they're going to try and shine a light on some paths, and then hopefully that will help you in the future, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And even when, I mean, it's a new lifestyle that I'm living compared to them. And sometimes you have completely different outlooks on different, subjects and different opinions. And even that helps, because I get to see it from a completely different point of view, completely different, something I would never even think of. Right? I get to see it from their vision, and I know that they mean good, they mean well. So it really helps me look at things from different point of views and understand people and understand my decisions better than before. So yeah.
And here's a little bit of a curveball. Is there anything that you're proud of that no one else knows?
Anything that I'm proud of and no one else knows? Well, sort of. Okay, there's this thing. If no one else knows it, then there's sort of a reason I try not to share a lot of stuff. But I wouldn't say so. I mean, I try to do a lot of good when I can. Now, I wouldn't say I'm a very good person. I'm an amazing person. I help people. I wouldn't say that. That's not true. And especially now at this age, I haven't done much. But I do what I can. I do when I have a chance to do it. I always do it. And I think it immediately devalues what you've done. If you do some good and you tell everyone about it, it immediately lowers the value, in my opinion. So I try not to share it at all. If I do something good, if I, let's say, donate somewhere, if I help someone out, I just try not to share it, because then it sort of makes it pointless. It defeats the purpose of it. So I'd say that's probably the best answer I can give at this time. I mean,
that's fine. So what I'm going to do now, Arian, I'm going to lighten the mood a bit. I'm going to throw in 10 random questions. Okay. Now, this is a 10 quick-fire question round, which means you don't have time to think. Whatever comes out of your mouth, you just go with. All right?
I'm familiar.
There's no impressing anyone. There's just Arian coming into the world with whatever he comes out with. Okay.
All right. Well, we do a similar thing, actually. We have a podcast on one of the startups I'm working on. We have a similar podcast, and we interview different startups, actually, that are set up by students. And currently we focus on Cypriot startups in Cyprus. And we do a similar thing. We ask 10 questions where they have to answer quickly. So I'm familiar.
Yeah, good. There we go. Right. If you could be any animal, what would it be and why?
Oh my God. Okay. A wolf, because I'm very interested in the way they strategize when they're traveling from one point to another. It's very interesting, fascinating.
Yeah. If you were famous, what would you be famous for?
What would I be famous for? I'd say my young age. Young age. The reason, yeah.
What is your favorite movie quote?
Oh, my favorite movie quote. I can't think of. Okay, this one I don't know. I might have to think about this one. My favorite movie quote. It defeats the purpose. I don't know. I have no idea.
That's fine. I'll hold that one.
I don't have one.
What is one food you wouldn't want to give up?
Steak. Easy.
If you could teleport, where would you go and why?
Where would I go and why? I would go to the US because it's somewhere that I've always wanted to go, and it's quite far away. So I don't think I'll be there anytime in the future. So near future anyway.
Where would you go if you could be invisible for one day?
I could be invisible.
Or what would you do?
The Russian government, they're the center of all their operations. Definitely, without a doubt.
What is the thing you're most afraid of?
Getting old, losing time.
What is your best childhood memory?
My best childhood memory. So okay, well, that's the thing. This is one of the only ones I remember. It's not the best childhood memory I've got, but this is the only one I remember at the moment. There was a time where my parents were downstairs. They were getting in the car, and then I was upstairs next to the door to the apartment with my grandparents, and my grandpa wanted to do something. I don't know. He wanted to go inside, and he needed some time to get ready, and he wanted to waste some time and stall my parents. So he just sent me downstairs, and he asked me to ask whether the horn of our car was a beep or a boop. Right. So I ran down 4 times, and then I still remember. It's such a weird memory that I always remember. And I ran down 4 times just to try to figure out what it was. And it wasn't even a beep or a boop, It was, car horn. Come on. It's not a boop or a beep. So yeah, that's one thing I remember. And he wasted 10 minutes actually. So he accomplished what he wanted.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And if you could write a book about your life, what would it be called?
A book about Be Fluid. That's all.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So that's your 10 questions. I'm not going to go back to your favorite movie quote, but you can send me a message afterwards if you remember.
That's the thing. It's such a shame too, because I'm a big fan of quotes. In fact, I have a note on my phone, full of proverbs and full of saying and expressions and all that I use in different conversations. I'm a big fan, right? There you go. I found it. Among the blind, the one-eyed man is king. That's the one. Yeah. Without a doubt.
Awesome. Yeah. That's an awesome one.
I couldn't remember the right one. Actually, I remember 2 or 3, but I had to choose one. Difficult anyway.
So that was quite interesting. So you just mentioned there that you have proverbs and quotes and things on your phone. And I'm a big, person where I enjoy reading something and it triggers something in my mind, or it keeps me on a path, or it keeps me moving forward in a certain way.
Right.
What's the importance to you to have this external motivation to keep you going and moving you on your path?
What do you mean in that? In what sense? Keeping me moving?
Like for me, it's I read some of these quotes and it inspires me sometimes, or if I'm not in a great space, it picks me back up again and reminds me, taps into a memory, maybe taps into a conversation, or it just reminds me why I'm doing what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. What does it do for you?
Well, for me, the main reason I love looking at quotes and proverbs, because there's so much meaning behind it. Like let's say some influential person said a certain quote, and they've lived their whole life, let's say 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, even 30 years. They've lived their life getting to a point where they've said that quote, and you can read the quote and sort of get an outlook or get a general idea of what they've gone through and the lessons that they've learned in less than 5 seconds, right? It gives you another way of thinking and looking at things. And that's what was very important to me. I mean, I try to read different proverbs because it gives me a different point of view in a conversation. So it sort of helps keeping me going. And if sometimes I don't have enough to give, or if I'm confused, or if I don't know what to do, it gives me another way to look at it. And yeah, I'd say that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the time it allows us to come out of our head for a moment, because a lot of the time we're in our own head thinking that it's so important, a lot of the things that we're doing, and the whole spotlight scenario on ourselves, when we realize we're just this tiny little cell on this big ball of land spinning in space at 37 miles per hour, going nowhere, and we don't even know why we're here. And then you realize that it's not that important. And when you realize that, then I think we can take a step back out and actually start doing important things.
Yeah, exactly. It really makes you realize how insignificant some things are. Yeah. It's true.
And I think hindsight, as you go on, the older you get, you'll look back at certain things and you'll be like, that wasn't even that important, really. But at the time, it felt important. And a good question I ask myself is, if there's a decision or something that's happening that I'm getting a bit, ground down with, I'm thinking, in 5 years, is this really going to matter? And if the answer is no, which a lot of the time it is, I try and let myself go out.
Exactly. I've started doing this as well. And I sort of try to look at it as if, okay, I have a different way of looking at it rather than the 5 years thing. So I think to myself, let's say I'm 60 years old, I have grandchildren. We're sitting around a table talking, and it's the time where I have to give them all my memories and all that. Will I be thinking of whatever is about to happen? Is it worthy of a grandpa story, right? That's how I look at it. If it's worthy, then I'll give it my all. If it's not, then it's not that big of a deal to me. I mean, I can't spend my time on it. That's sort of how I look at it. So yeah, but more or less, I get what you mean. Exactly. The 5 years thing makes perfect sense. Yeah.
It's lovely. I like the grandpa story. I might keep going. Is this the grandpa story?
Yeah, exactly. Is it worthy? Is it worthy for a grandpa story? If not, then out the door.
Right. So now, as we approach the end of our conversation, there's a couple more questions I'd like to ask you.
Of course.
Just get a little deeper understanding about how you think, and so the listeners can understand a little bit more about you. Okay. Now, we've reached the last moments of your life, over 150 years in the future, and you don't have enough energy to speak, but you have enough energy to write 3 words. Now, these 3 words have resonated with you all your life, and you hope by sharing them, they can resonate with the people that are listening. What would those 3 words be for you, and why?
All right. I mean, too soon to tell something like this, but enjoy your time. 3 words. I'd say that's the most important. I've lived a rather limited life. I mean, I haven't experienced much, and it's a short time. You can't even say 17 years because the first 12, 13 years of your life, you're sort of just living, just breathing. I mean, it's not really life. So 4 or 5 years that I've been doing something that really matters. So it's a limited time. I can't really give a definite answer, but at this time, I'd say enjoy your time, definitely.
Perfect. And this podcast is called Bigger Than the Hustle, and right now you're bigger than the world. So I've got a mic that's connected you up to 7.58 billion people on this planet. Everyone can hear you, everyone is conscious, there's no language barriers, everyone is listening to what you've got to say. If I can hand this mic over to you for the next 30 seconds, what would your message be to the world and why?
I'd say, every morning when you get up, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get up. I mean, it doesn't matter how long it takes for you to finally get the motivation to do what you've been wanting to do. But just take a moment and think about, let's say, the day after, or in a week, or in a month, or in a year, and you're going to be having this conversation with someone who actually did get up and do what they were supposed to do. And you see the difference in the outcome. I mean, how much more ahead they are. And you're going to sit there and you're like, only if I actually had done what I was supposed to do, right? So think of the future, always live in the present, but always have the future in mind. And think about next year. I mean, even tomorrow, think about the day after. Just make sure you make every move, let's say carefully, and make sure you don't regret it. Let's say living with regrets is a pain that I can't even imagine. I try to avoid it at all costs. So, yeah.
And that was so beautiful that I let you carry on for more than 30 seconds. I've not let many guests do that.
Was it more than 30 seconds?
I let you get away with that. But thank you for sharing that message. I felt a lot of thought went into that, and I'm thankful that you shared it today with us.
Of course. My pleasure.
At this moment, Arian, I'd just like to thank you. Thank you for turning up the way you have.
Thank you for having me.
What you're bringing into the world. It's so inspiring to get a young person on. Now, you have the record as my youngest guest on this podcast.
I'm honored. Thank you.
So be honored, be thankful for all the people that have gone beyond you, that have then allowed you to be the version of yourself that you are today. Exactly. Always be grateful for everything you have, but always be motivational to inspire you to drive and move forward. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for accepting my invitation to come on today.
Thank you.
And I'm sure there's some more conversations we can have in the future as well.
Of course. Just one question that I'd like to ask you. I don't know if this is a regular thing or not, but I'm doing this new thing where I get a range of people, whoever I work with, and whenever I have the chance, I ask them for their number one advice. Something, their absolute number one advice that they'd like to give to themselves and the people that they care about. So what would that be?
Is it advice for you or advice for me?
You can choose. That's up to you.
Okay, so because it works, it's slightly different, because advice to me is to slow down. Slow down, start focusing on the things outside of yourselves which are important, which are the relationships around me, which are the conversations I have, and the powerful conversations that are possible. That's conversation to myself. And I would say to you, if I was giving you the number one advice, is the people around you are the most important thing you have. Okay? Spend your time with them in terms of, so we talk about family, we talk about friends, we talk about colleagues, etc. This relationship is what makes us human, right? We fill our lives with a lot of material things, with money, etc. But it's the conversations you have with the people around you that are going to inspire you, motivate you, bring you down, lift you up when you need to be lifted up, right? So if you can invest in those people the way they've invested in you, and pay that back in the way that you bring yourself into the world, I think will be the best advice I can give going forward for your whole life. Because we are all human. We're one symbiotic system called the universe, and we're filled with people, and those people communicate by voices. So if you can invest in your voice to be as strong, as powerful, and motivating as it can to help the people around you, and they can likewise do the same with you, I would say.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you for coming on again, Arian. And
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Now, this podcast was called Bigger Than the Hustle. And a few thoughts to leave you with before we go. Big thoughts lead to big ideas. Big ideas lead to big energy. Big energy leads to big actions. And big actions lead to a big life. So keep thinking big. Until next week. Goodbye.
Tap into your own magic because it's there. Believe it, see it, and search ruthlessly for it. Because what will come forth is love, is your magic, and you can have a life of endless ripples and make an amazing positive impact on all of humanity.